of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tistero. Chapter 60. We have codenames for a reason. Sharing a wonderful three-way conversation with Mirai and Shouta, Toshinori felt thrilled. The pair had had a fine time and he'd been so glad for them. Ashe was a wonderful choice of restaurant, and he was gladder still that their resident cat dad hadn't been too put off by the paparazzi or the additional attention. That made him hopeful. However, that feeling of jubilation didn't last, as the call he made to Todoroki Enji connected. If only he didn't have to deal with him. But this was part and parcel of the job, wasn't it? He had to deal with Endeavor because, well, no one else was going to, and considering the man was snapping at his heels and had gone out of his way to spoil the end of his friend's date night, he wanted to give the bruiser a piece of his mind, to accost him for daring to intrude upon their peace because the way he'd acted was disgraceful, unprofessional, discourteous, typically him. And so, at 22:20, he was sat in his home office, the neon blue of his gaze fixed out of the window where a star-studded night had unfurled across his home city, the magnificent spires of the metropolis proper towering up and out of the landscape, all glittering with lights of their own. However, as beautiful as he'd once found it, he couldn't help picturing a certain little cafe decked out in warm, friendly reds, yellows, and whites, a scattering of paw prints playfully daubed here and there, the scent of freshly baked goods, and a tantalizing, heady mix of sweet and savory, the sound of chatter and the laughter of children, their smiles joyous, their giggles resplendent. If he closed his eyes, he was there. Yogi! So close, and yet so far away. It's about time you called me. This is hardly the kind of treatment that someone of my rank deserves. That gruff voice breathed down the phone, his tone bitterly irritated. And it's a damned good job that I was in a public place when I happened upon Sasaki this evening. Somehow managing not to sigh, because it'd be hypocritical of him to criticize the other man's failings and then exhibit similar behavior, wouldn't it? That would be, in Shota's words, irrational, wouldn't it? Toshinori sucked in a breath and turned the volume down on the device's loudspeaker. It was hardly needed. Just about this evening, he interrupted before the man got on his soapbox to rant some more. I shouldn't need to say this, Todoroki, but that outburst of yours, should it have happened anywhere else, the press would have had a field day, he warned. Only regardless of both of our positions in the rankings, my calendar doesn't revolve around you, just as yours doesn't revolve around me, he huffed, although from time to time he had to wonder if that was the case. In most circumstances, he would be delighted to see someone being so ambitious, pleased to know that people wanted to emulate the example he set in the memory of his Oshisho. Overjoyed to mentor someone who believed, as he did, that the top spot of the hero world should be held by a symbol of hope, a symbol of valor, a symbol of peace. That little upstart who threw water on me was very lucky too. Todoroki Enji, however, didn't want to embody any of those ideals. He'd always been driven, but now that drive seemed to be powered by something far removed from the virtues they'd learned about in school, and 1,000 times further from the love, warmth, and desire to serve and protect others that had fueled Nana, the other successors of One for All, and himself. I believe you're potentially threatening is a civilian, he told him, a fierce protectiveness lacquering his tone. And a dear friend to me besides, so you did well to let this go, Endeavor. From all accounts, his actions saved you from further disgrace and a hefty bill for damages besides, he reminded. You! Why the sudden urgency? He interrupted bluntly, his tone unlike the one he was used to using. He despised having to sound curt or blunt. However, this was sadly the only language his fellow pro seemed to understand. It's unlike you to be so forthright in seeking me out. I had arranged to call you this Tuesday. Who is CD? Balking. And very nearly falling out of his custom-made leather executive's chair, his arms momentarily flailing before he planted his socked feet, which had previously been resting atop his immaculately clean desk, firmly upon the tatami mat floor to ground himself. Toshinori was very glad this wasn't a video call. God! We have code names for a reason, Todoroki. He managed after a cough, his eyes narrowing upon the phone in a self-conscious paranoid check to ensure that he'd not accidentally betrayed his very telling reaction to the question. Why had he not realized that the crimson-haired man would go snooping into Thursday's mission? Think, Toshi, think. Tried to get him onto other things.
Codenames are for civilians and the police force's benefit.
The other ground out.
We are supposed to trust each other. Or are you all talk when it comes to the fraternity of our association?
Shut!
Codenames are used more so to protect identities,
he argued.
CD has explicitly requested to remain anonymous, so they're an underground hero then.
The other hedged, his tone peppered with dislike.
You're truly okay with a tactician who can erase quirks remaining in the shadows. Yeah, right.
He grumbled.
That's clearly why they were so involved with Thursday's mission. Or am I wrong? Todoroki, Or are you squirreling away this person and keeping them in their skill set just for your own use? No, it's not like that,
He floundered, his hands making wild abortive gestures that he prayed the other couldn't see.
Oh, then what is it like?
The flame quirk user spat.
Because I'm pretty sure, once of the rest of the top 10 here, that you're accruing people with particular skills for your own interests. Then there'd be more questions for you. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised to see you, your agencies, and all of your associates investigated. Sydney is a civilian with special permissions, Endeavor,
he stated sharply.
They have no interest in pro-hero society, despite my best attempts to sway them, and now that I've come to know the man as an individual and their circumstances, I have no interest in pushing the matter either.
He grunted.
You will leave them be. You will not pursue them. Do you understand? Luckily for you and whomever they are, that won't be a problem.
The other muttered, his tone petulant and annoyed.
My primary reason for getting in touch with you was to inform the current number one that I'll be away for the next 2 years, and to pass on my contact details.
He added.
You may not believe in professional courtesy, but I do.
He groped before a new telephone number and set the coordinates ping across his smartphone's display. Oh no, he thought. You're going away? That's a shame.
2 years?
He queried and hoped against hope that his tone didn't sound as gleeful as he thought it did. Oops.
Yes, I've been granted a special placement within a particularly well-known sect of monks who are beyond proficient in the defensive arts.
The other bragged, his tone a pleased purr.
My successor and the other children will have the opportunity to learn under masters who've honed their quirks, bodies, and minds far beyond other means,
he added.
So upon our return, do not think that your coveted title will remain yours for long, senpai,
he warned with a deep, pleased chuckle.
For I will wipe up your messes that far outreach Shigaraki, and raise that boy of mine to be more than a match for you, so prepare yourself, he urged. Because I shall create a dynasty, a family of heroes whose fame, power, and overall might will dwarf yours, Gran Torino's, and Night Eye's all combined.
Staring at his phone, his temples inundated with sweat drops, Toshinori allowed the other to laugh for a handful of seconds more before quietly offering, "Oh, thank you for letting me know. Have a good time and take care." The index finger of his right hand pressing the end call button. God! All things considered, the news could have been worse. The consequences more severe. Letting out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, he wiped a sun-kissed hand over his eyes and sagged quite dramatically back into his chair, his relief immeasurable, his shoulders finally relaxing. If NG had found out that CD, their precious cat dad, was the same upstart who doused him, and rightly so, then none of them would have had any peace, would they? And now they had 2 whole years' worth of a Japan without Todoroki's posturing, his passive aggression, and his all-told winning personality. It was worth keeping Shigarame-san abreast of the other's movements, though, wasn't it? He'd be willing to put a substantial amount of yen on the flame quirk user heading to Central Asia, where such training regimens were prolific, and damn! He wasn't worried per se. One for All was a power that would always outgrow and outshine others so long as its user's heart was pure. However, He couldn't say that he wasn't worried about such an environment fanning the flames of the haughty man's egotism. Right now, Enji was an annoyance at best who, in fights where brute strength was needed, was a valuable asset. Yes, he could have denied this, for he'd witnessed such a thing himself. They'd fought a villain only a few years ago, with a quirk that created tsunamis. The resulting battle and victory had solidified Endeavor's position as the country's number 2. Their country's number 2 despite opinion polls.
What is for later?
He whispered to himself, the fingers of his hand that he'd wiped the sweat away from his brow now pinching the bridge of his nose. How could the elation of knowing Shigaraki was definitely locked away in Tartarus be so easily overturned, and by the actions of one of their own no less? Shouta-kun, he was finding more and more, was rarely wrong about most things, especially when it came to hero culture, wasn't he? Maybe it was time for a shake-up of pro-society. Maybe the people's voices should have more sway, and by people, he didn't necessarily mean the votes, polls, and tallies of ardent, starry-eyed fans. No. For surely there were more people like his cat dad out there, quietly toiling away to make a difference, unnoticed by the media or rioter community at large. Disadvantaged salary workers wondering why their hard work went unnoticed. Parents raising disadvantaged children who were expected to suffer in silence. Men, women, and everyone in between becoming dissident, jaded, and disillusioned. Disillusioned? Because, well, how different were him and his ilk from singers, dancers, TV personalities, and the like? How many pros were in his profession just for the opportunity to save people? Was he a hypocrite for thinking such things? Sighing, he cast his blue eyes around his home office, which resided in a penthouse atop the most expensive place to live in Musudafu. A penthouse rammed with every mod con with a personal chef on call day and night. In a complex with 5 swimming pools, 7 gyms, 3 saunas, and 2 luxury spas. And everywhere you looked, there he was. Statues, posters, artwork, action figures, bobbleheads, Pez dispensers. He had his own brand of cup noodles, cereal, and clothing. For God's sake, he Was this the vision of a symbol of peace he told Nana about during their first fateful encounter beside that frigid river in the falling snow? Could he give such things up? Would he? Closing his eyes, the disappointment in himself mounting, he found his mind once again fleeing to that wonderful little eatery with the jingling cat bell above the door, the taste of muffins in the air, and Shouta-kun standing behind the service bar, that small smile stealing his features as he snorted out,
"Another cake order. Where do you put it all?"
before shooing him to sit. To sit among the others' community.
They're your community too, you big dope. You're always welcome here, alright?
To watch the children work, to enjoy the teenagers' banter, to grin at the MU students and middle schoolers, to indulge in Mibi-chan's flirtations with good humor.
She's a firebrand, I'm warning you.
And sip coffee with Inga and Mitsuki. To stay there forever surrounded by such simple yet precious things. To soak in a warmth created by something other than the summer heat. Then his eyes opening, Toshinori let out a small quiet sigh because he wasn't at the Noronako. He wasn't surrounded by those people, a plate of yakisoba topped off with his favorite minty lemonade waiting for him to enjoy. No. He was here in a huge living space filled with static, inanimate things. The smiles on his photographs seemed hollow. The poses his figure struck looked static. The bright colors he was known for dull and lackluster. He bzz, 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 bzz. Blinking, his hands reaching for his cell phone like a lifeline thrown across a torrid sea, a little prayer leaving his lips that it wasn't Enji, who'd surely stop laughing by now and noticed that he'd hung up. Aizawa Shouta.
I could feel you stressing about Endeavor from all the way over here, you know. Please don't tell me you're gonna let a prick like him ruin your evening.
Laughing his sadness chits to me, his body curling around the phone, the so-called legendary pro set to work texting back.
All right. What could possibly spoil my evening when you are here to talk with me?
Worries for later, indeed.